Happy Thursday night, everybody. Because of course I am Coach Kenny, and I got my co-host Allie with me. And Allie. What state are you in tonight?
State of confusion? No, I'm in Georgia. I'm at my parents' lake place with my two children. They both had spring break. Their colleges had spring break at the same time. So we're down here. I have one bar. So I said, Kenny, I'm going to be your support coach tonight. I'm actually going to keep my mouth shut most of the evening.
That's fine.
Here and there. So anyway,
awesome.
But that's it.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're with me tonight, and welcome everybody. But tonight we're going to dive into element 7, and we have really, through the first 6 elements, not really focused a lot on food and situations, but we've been creating an awareness about what our current reality is, where we're at right now, why we want to be here, figuring out those reasons, and now we're going to start applying some more situational awareness to our days and our weeks while we're in this 5 and 1 journey, and even our health journey beyond 5 and 1. How do we create this situational awareness so that we take these obstacles out of our way that lead us to a path of a bad choice, and we open up our hearts and our minds to accept and see a path to make a healthy choice? And that's what basically creating a leptogenic world is when we find a way to make a healthy choice, even when you had a busy day or you've had a stressful day, or God, I don't feel like cooking tonight. Well, honey, you can still go to Chick-fil-A and get a Cobb salad, take the corn out of it, get a light dressing or go home with the dressing, and make a meal that, if you don't feel like cooking, you can make it work. You just got to slow down and think about a way to make it work. Of course, mindset, skill set, and action tonight. The mindset is going to be focused on making simple, powerful changes in your surroundings to make it easier to make healthy choices. Connect time and place with your food choices to optimize health. Explore and implement strategies to adjust your surroundings to create your leptogenic world. And lastly, feel amazing while making these changes. And this is something that takes a little bit of practice, especially when you first start 5 and 1. Our world is, let's be real, our world is surrounded by so many poor food choices that sometimes we get blinded by all the lights. And all we got to do is pull things back a little bit, and the healthy choices are there. We just got to find, number one, create awareness on where to look. Dr. A says it, perfectly on page 166. We live in an obesogenic world. This is a major reason why so many of us struggle with our weight. What if we create a leptogenic world, surroundings that help you become thin? Think about that. Well, I'll have some of that. Who wouldn't, right? In this element, we will focus on making simple yet powerful changes in your surroundings to make healthy choices easier. You buy your willpower at the grocery store. And so one thing that I think is really great, even since this book has came out, 5 years ago now, is we have more ability to control our shopping at the grocery store. You can order online and pick it up. And I think for a lot of folks, that's one way to create a leptogenic world, because I used to be in the grocery business. So I know as a grocer, when you walk in the food line in our store, the first thing you see is a 16-foot long table full of sweets. And they're always buy one, get one free. They still make money on those things. And you think, oh, they're half off. No, there's an 80% markup on that $3.99 pastry that you're looking at. So there's a lot of money to be made, but that's how here again, if you can control your environment by changing the way you shop, that's one thing that you can do to create a leptogenic world and create a world that you'll be a little bit skinnier. And I mean, just like he says here, if you only bought healthy food at the grocery store and it's not close at hand, you can instead stop, challenge, and choose. And without any temptation, choose something healthy to eat or an activity on your healthy path. So if you got those, if you only go to the store and you have it delivered to your car, you create an environment where you don't have those unhealthy choices. Those of us who have kids, my suggestion's always been look at your pantry. And I know on Optimal Awakenings, a lot of folks put on the back of the door, the little pocket organizer with your fuelings. That way, I know in my situation, that's worked great over the years. That way, because I tell my daughter, you hide your stuff in the back of the pantry on the bottom shelf in the corner, I don't want to see the Oreos and the chips and all the good stuff. You know, that's you, but I'll open the door and I'm right here. And I know I can't go in there. That's you know, that's not my environment back there.
And
Um,
Kenny, I want to
yeah, go
say
ahead.
too, you know, I found snacks that my children enjoyed that I had no interest in at all. You know, their little mouths sometimes, the fruit snacks and stuff that they like, I think are gross. And so I said, okay, we're going to find the stuff that y'all like, but mama doesn't. And so then it wasn't even a temptation, even on my worst day, because it just wasn't something I'm interested in. Like I could care less about goldfish. So they love goldfish. So that was one of the things that they had. But also we had fun introducing some snacks that were healthier for them. Like my daughter ended up, and she still eats them to this day, dried apple chips instead of chips. So, you know, and again, I'm not particularly interested in dried apple chips, but if some did land in my mouth, it'd be a lot better of a thing than if a bunch of potato chips landed in my mouth, because dried apple chips are not something you're going to go, oh my gosh, I just ate the whole bag. So it's not addictive like that. So anyway, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, you know, of course, the next thing that he talks about in here is a habit clock. And he says, in this element, we're going to introduce the habit of connecting time and place to coordinate where you are throughout the day and make small but critical changes in your surroundings. Of course, in the next element, this is going to evolve into your own personal habit clock, which will make it easier to do the habits of health and harder to fall into the habits of disease. And so if we look on page 168, you'll see that habit clock. And, you know, you all have probably noticed, if you look at that clock, it may look very familiar. That is the Optavia logo. And so those radians on that clock are there. But here again, take a look at that clock and see how your day fits into that. Mine is very much similar to what's here. Usually wake up 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and bedtime is somewhere around 9:30 or 10. And then you've got, of course, that's where you need to plot what your strategies are for the day. Of course, wake up time, having breakfast in the morning. Many of us commute to work, or if you're retired, you've got other things maybe you're doing and so forth, maybe some social time, and then making sure that you clock or plot those points when you're going to eat during the day. Some of us, we don't think about that when we first start 5 and 1. We're so worried that we're going to mess things up. But if you just slow down a little bit, put those reminders in your phone and just say, hey, I've got to eat every 3 hours. And you may not even be hungry, but having that reminder go off. And, you know, if it's time to eat at 1 o'clock and that alarm goes off, it's time to eat. And maybe even drink some, you know, water with that fueling. And that'll help you set up that environment while you're out and about during the day, because you've got your phone with you during the day. When the alarms go off, you know, it's time to eat, time to drink, and so forth. And so I think it's important to do that, especially those who tend to not look at the clock. I know Allie's, you know, said a lot of times I get busy, I'm at the farm, and I don't even think about what time it is. But if you put something in there to give you a notification or a different alarm, then you hear it and you've got to disable it. It does help make things much easier. Food environment design in your house. And he says, let's start with the center of food storage, preparation, and serving in your kitchen and pantry. That's where he will refer you to part 2.2 in the Habits of Health book, the blueprint, safe weight loss and health gain. Of course, he says it'll give you specific foods to toss as well as ones to replenish your shelves. And I think this is something that's really hard for a lot of people when they get into their 5 and 1 journey a week or two, and then, you know, they're like, man, every time I go in the pantry, you know, I'm 2 weeks in, but God, those Oreos are staring right at me. And that's where you got to, you know, as a coach, we give them ideas. You got 2 choices. You can toss them, or in my situation, when we first started years ago, I told my daughter, those Oreos are yours. Take them upstairs. I do not want to see them, because I didn't have the willpower to not. No, I'm just going to be real, guys. So that was really tough for me. Of course, now we're going to dive into the pantry a little bit. The pantry is a place where most processed foods are stored. Think about that. Most of your processed foods are stored in the pantry. And your refrigerator, the same scenario there. So, you know, if you got a 2-sided refrigerator, maybe you open up one side and that's where your stuff is, and maybe the right side's where the kids' stuff is. You just gotta be open and willing to make those choices and situations. So whichever hand you open the refrigerator with normally, that's where your stuff needs to be. Go ahead, Alan.
I was going to add to that and just say, I tell my clients a lot those first 2 weeks, go ahead and put all your fuelings for the day in a bag and then stick them on the counter. Like, don't even go in the pantry. Don't even go. I mean, you might have to go in the refrigerator to get almond milk or something, but just those first 2 weeks when, your taste buds are changing and you're getting this new rhythm, sometimes it's best, even if your pantry is clean as a whistle, to break that habit of every time you might be hungry or you just kind of on autopilot and you keep going to the pantry. Just make a concerted effort. Don't even go to the pantry at all.
Yep.
Yeah.
He goes on to start talking about what to get rid of. He says, start by getting rid of white rice, white flour, white bread, crackers, rice cakes, croutons, breadcrumbs, vegetable oils, margarines, and so forth, white potatoes, cornmeal, corn grits, refined cereals. And guys, if you've got kids, this is where you've got to make these changes. You've got two choices. Do I want to continue to feed my children these things that I know are unhealthy because this is what got me to where I'm at? So if I feed my children this, how are they going to turn out? That was a big one for me. I didn't want my kids to grow up and look like me later. And so that was important for me to, here again, this is where you kind of slowly but surely introduce these healthy options into them. They're not always receptive at first, but if you consistently do it over time and you constantly ask them to try this, try that, try broccoli, try zucchini noodles. We no longer eat spaghetti here because of that. That's, we eat zucchini noodles or spaghetti, and we eat it about once a week and they enjoy it. So that's one thing. Like when we do a Mexican night, instead of me fixing rice, we'll use zucchini noodles in place of that. And so we don't have the rice with that, when we make Mexican. So you got to encourage those healthy options throughout this process. He says, write down all the things that you are throwing out. And the key reason for writing down all these unhealthy foods can be summed up in one sentence. And this is where you need to change the way you think. I don't eat these foods because I've chosen to create optimal health and well-being in my life. And take solace in the fact that you're doing the right thing to move your health forward. And that's a very difficult approach from when you may have told yourself that you couldn't eat these foods because they were not on your quote diet. And
say not allowed and say instead, I'm choosing to not have those because I told myself I was setting them to the side, but the beautiful thing was I was setting them to the side, but by the time you're on this program long enough, you get to where your body doesn't even ask for them anymore. You don't even want them anymore. So, but it does, you're right, Kenny, it absolutely matters how you talk to yourself about it.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, next, let's move on to the refrigerator next. So page 171. Here's what needs to go from the fridge, he says. Whole fat dairy products such as milk, cheese, yogurt, butter, cottage cheese, and mayonnaise. Processed deli meats, bacon, hot dogs, sugary sodas and juices, beer and wine, of course. I'll just speak on this because I think it's fair, because there's a lot of folks that I've coached over the years. People keep wine in their refrigerator. I'll keep it for one of those days. But here again, if wine was a crutch for you prior to doing 5 and 1 and you found yourself having a glass of wine every night, is that something that's really going to serve you well going forward, or is it going to lead you to making more poor choices down the road? So if you leave that, by leaving that bottle of wine in that refrigerator, what are you doing are you setting yourself up to win in the future, or are you setting yourself up to yo-yo? That can be really hard for some people. Foods high in calories, fat, and sugar, including peanut butters, jellies, salad dressings. And we talk about, peanut butter all the time. Sweet pickles, relish, and ketchup. And ketchup, who'd have thought ketchup, right? 3 tablespoons of ketchup has the same sugar as 1 Krispy Kreme donut. About that. So think about that. Now he says, fill your fridge back up with these things. Low-fat protein sources such as lean chicken and meats. Of course, eggs, fresh vegetables and vegetables for the freezer. Condiments such as mustard, pickles, and vinegars. Mineral water, sparkling water, unsweetened iced tea. Now, I know some of you all are true Southerners. I used to be one myself, but the unsweet iced tea, you learn to enjoy it. And many times you just learn to drink water. And so here again, it's a stop, challenge, and choose moment for so many of us. And not allowing that normal, well, I'm from the South, we all drink sweet tea. Don't allow the thoughts and that mentality to derail you in this process. Of course, olives and capers and herbs and spices. In fact, he says, list below some of the things you have in your refrigerator during weight loss phase one, the catalyst to reaching a healthy weight. So you feel free to list those things out. In the freezer, here's what needs to go from your freezer. This is another thing that's people don't like throwing food out that's not serving them well. But frozen food with added sugar, frozen vegetables with seasoning that contain sugar, orange juice and other fruit concentrates, breads and rolls, frozen entrees containing rice and pasta, frozen pizza, frozen dessert, ice cream. So ice cream, we'll speak on that for a minute. Ice cream was a terrible crutch for me. If I know that there is a pint of ice cream in the refrigerator, I will eat it. Whether it's 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon when I get home from work or whenever. Here again, just knowing that those things are there for some of us, it's a trigger. And this goes back to element 16. We'll talk about that later. Of course, lean beef and poultry, veggie burgers from soy, beans, no grains, potatoes, and sugar. Those are the things to be filling your freezer back up with. Filling your freezer with fresh or frozen vegetables like broccoli, spinach, cauliflower, and green beans. Unsweetened fruits like blueberries, peaches, raspberries, and strawberries. So I would encourage all of you all to really go through this element and go down through these lists and use that 2.2 in the habits of health to kind of really work through your refrigerator. And if you've never done this and maybe you're 4 or 5 months in, take a good, hard, serious look at these things. Preparation and storage. He says, in terms of preparation, there are many ways we can use design to help us eat healthier. One of the keys to eating less is to serve less, and this can be accomplished in 4 practical ways. Smaller plates. How many of you, and I know Debbie and Val are here, and I know me and Allie. So if you have downsized the size of your plates in the last, since you've started 5 and 1, raise your hand. We have downsized our plate. Yes. We used to have the 14-inch, or if you get Chinette, them great big old Chinette dish pans, you could put 5 pounds of food on. That's how we used to eat back in the day. Now it's a 9-inch plate. And it's more there on that plate than you think with 9 inches. So smaller plates move from a 12-inch to 9-inch plate. We're going to discuss more of that in in healthy eating for life for sure. Make a note of where and when you will change your plate size. He says, check here when it is done. See element 15, how to eat healthy for life. So those plate sizes, they're non-negotiable here from now on. I have had company over and they're like, these are the pie plates. Where is the dinner plate at? And I'm like, no, these are the dinner plates. And they're like, never thought about that before because they always overeat. So then that was the reason I told them about that. Serve from the kitchen only. Put your portion on your plate and do not bring serving bowls for seconds to the dinner table. That was something that our family really had to get accustomed to. We always thought we all sit down together as a family. We got all this food in front of us. We don't get up till it's all gone. That theory is no longer in place anymore. So we prepare in the kitchen. We sit down together at dinner, and we don't get back up when your plate's empty for that. What you got on it, you're finished. Let's see. He says use plates that are green and have a high color contrast with foods that need to be eaten in moderation only. The worst color plates to have in your kitchen: yellow and red. Yellow and red are the color of McDonald's, right? So just think about that. So those are the colors that tempt you to eat more, yellow and red, but the green is going to cause you to not eat as much. Large glasses of water with a pitcher of water for refill at the dining table. So I'm guilty of this, and occasionally I will still do this because I drink a lot, but I used to drink a lot of sweet tea. So my sit down to go, if I went out to a restaurant, I would drink 6 glasses of sweet tea like it was nothing. Wouldn't even think about it. And so switching over to water, drinking a lot of water. And we know that by drinking water, we of course eat less as well. other design thoughts in your kitchen and surroundings. When storing leftovers, wrap any unhealthy food that family members have eaten in aluminum foil so it is not visible, and wrap your healthy leftovers in plastic wraps so they are visible. I think that's a really good idea. Store healthy food in bigger containers so they are more visible when going into the refrigerator, and unhealthy ones in smaller ones so that you can put them in the corner and you not make those choices. I lost her. One word on emotions and stress. They stimulate areas of your brain that make you crave sugar, fat, and salt.
Steph.
And sorry about that, ladies.
And you said, what makes you crave that?
So he says one more. So he talks about emotions and stress, and he says one more word on emotions and stress. They stimulate areas of your brain that make you crave sugar, fat, and salt. When you start feeling that uneasy, uncomfortable feeling, I like to call the icky sauce coming on, make sure as you stop, drink some water, and remove yourself from any surrounding environment that has even the hint of unhealthy food. So we all have those days where life is crazy, the world's caving in on us, we're paying more taxes than we need to, you fill in the blank, whatever the narrative is, that's your brain going into worry mode. And if I'm standing in a room full of sweets, I'm going to have it. I understand. I get that. And so you got to take a drink and get yourself out of there. Take a drink and think, move on. Your car. My biggest tip for a lot of folks is, especially parents who are on the go or even those who aren't, go buy a case of water or even a 12-pack of water, put it in your car. You've got something to drink all the time. Use that trip to the store as a way for you to drink the water. Yeah, you're probably going to have to go to the bathroom when you get there. I get that. But that's a one place that you can go, have a good water, and you'll get your water intake in. Avoid driving into or even by fast food joints. We've talked about this before. So Ashland, I used to drive home from Richmond going north. I'd always say, well, I'm going to swing through Ashland and get me something at the restaurant row through there. When I started my 501 journey years ago, now I don't even stop. I will not even drive through Ashland because that was my excuse to stop and make a poor choice. I just keep on driving. And once I get beyond the exit ramp, I'm like, I'm doing the right thing. And then of course, places like gas stations that sell snacks. So some of us use the excuse of, well, I'll go inside and pay cash and I'll grab a Hostess cake while I'm there. So if you're going to pay with a card, that's fine, or pay cash and walk straight out. Don't sit there and make those unhealthy choices. Restaurants. There are ways when we go to restaurants to create a leptogenic world. How do we do that? Visualize the divisions on the 9-inch plate. Order 2 appetizers instead of an entree, such as soup and a dinner salad or shrimp cocktail. One thing that Julie and I do now quite a bit when we go out to eat is many times we will order an entree and I'll ask the waitress, hey, is this a pretty good sized portion? And she's like, yeah, it's enough there for 2. We'll split it. We'll just get an extra plate and split that entree. And split a meal with your dining companion. Don't rely on the chef or waiter to serve you the proper amount of food. Surveys show that people generally eat everything that's put in front of them when they go to a restaurant. So a couple things you can do is ask for a box immediately, box up what you know is not going to serve you well, and then you've got dinner for tomorrow. And he says ask for a leftovers container when you place your order. That way you can, just like we said. Stay away from cream sauces and soups. A lot of times, if I get a salad, I'll ask for all the dressing on the side. If I order a steak, many times I would just say, hey, can they just lightly season that, or maybe not use so much oil when they cook it or so much butter when they cook it. If you go to Longhorns, tell them just don't bring the rolls. Or Texas Roadhouse, I'll use that as an example. Just don't bring the rolls. We don't need those. Like he says, don't be afraid to take charge of your meal. Choose only lean cuts of red meat, such as loin and flank steak. If you're having chicken, remember that white meat contains less fat. Ask for your meat, fish, or poultry to be prepared in minimal oil and butter, just like I said before. Have the chef trim all the excess fat before cooking. So, I mean, you can ask for that. And most restaurants will accommodate, any special requests that you have. And I think it's important just to ask and just ask, hey, do they cook this in salt or, no salt? And they'll accommodate you. Now he says, let's go to the bedroom. Healthy surroundings, ready your bedroom. Creating an environment that optimizes sleep quality is critical to good health. In fact, several studies confirm that poor sleep directly contributes to poor eating habits. Then he goes on to say that, if we we'll spend considerable time in phase 2 on this macro habit and Dr. Ray's Habits of Health in the future elements, giving you some tips to improve your sleep. But right now, here are a few simple steps to make your bedroom more conducive to healthy sleeping. Organize your bedroom and put away clutter. So if you're someone who clutter will drive you nuts, your OCD kicks in or whatever, clean it up, get it out of there. He says, once you've done that, describe how that feels. How does that make you feel? Less stressed. If you got 2 loads of laundry, in baskets, are you thinking about it while you're laying in bed? If you have a TV in your bedroom, remove or unplug it. That's hard for a lot of people. Your phone, that's hard for a lot of people. But I know Allie's talked about this. She puts it in her bathroom, right, Allie?
I actually leave it downstairs in the family room. I plug it in and then I go off to bed. So there's nothing critical that I need from that phone. And, I've gotten a regular alarm clock, old school, so that if there's a particular time I need to wake up, my body wakes me up pretty much at the same time every day now. But if if I have to get up early for a flight or something, I use an analog alarm clock because I don't need it. You get it little sorry, that's my dog. Little alarms and stuff can go off, little dings when messages come in. It just doesn't need to be in my room. And I sleep so much better when it's not. And I also wanted to say something too, talking about sleep. And, when you're tired, it makes you hungry. It's because the signal in the brain for hungry and tired is the same. And so a lot of times that's why, you talk about that late night snacking, that urge to eat like late at night. It's just your body going, hey, it's time to go to bed. It's time to go brush your teeth and go to bed. Like you don't need to eat anything. You need to go to bed. It's because you're tired. So just be aware of that. There'll be times, maybe in the afternoon, your battery gets kind of low and you get kind of tired and you want a snack or it's not really time to eat. Check yourself. If you're tired, you can go outside or get up from your desk, move around, get the blood pumping. And I guarantee you that will pass. That feeling, that wanting to snack will pass.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the next thing he talks about is making sure you get 8 hours of sleep. And so I think we've talked about this before. Ladies, this is especially important. If you're only getting less than 6.5 hours of sleep and you're a female, I think the odds are you're 60% more likely to have a heart attack, regardless of your age. So at least 6.5 to 8 hours, preferably 8 hours of sleep. I think that, and that number for guys is not that low. For men, they can get a little bit less sleep and not have those odds against them. But ladies, at 6.5 hours or less, your odds of having a heart attack are tremendously higher. Keeping your room cool while you sleep. So Allie's got the fan on. My girl has got the hot going on. I get it. I've got a wife going through menopause, ladies. I get the hot flashes. I can see Julie's face get red when it happens. So I'm there with you. But we tend to keep our bedroom very cool. So 64 at night, snuggle up. And, so just remember that. Keep that bedroom cool. Never eat in bed. And so, that's one of those binge things that you tend to, here again, those who used to sit in front of the TV with a bag of chips. Allie, I love your chips. Nobody can eat just one. Debbie, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, hey, can you eat your fueling in bed? I've done that sometimes.
Hey, if you forgotten to eat it and you're in bed, you go, hey, I think it's important to get it in. But try to not make it a habit every night at 10 o'clock. You're laying in bed, and you're almost asleep, and you go, oh, I'm going to go get me a fueling because I forgot. Just try to not make it a habit. I think
Well,
everything you're saying.
You know how we have that good energy and stuff when we have our fuelings, and it's not like caffeine energy, but it does make it hard for your brain to shut off. So you want to try and give some space between that last fueling and bedtime if you can, so that it gives your time, your body a chance to wind down, and it's not like, oh, more fuel. All right, well, let's keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course, he goes on in here. He's at the end of this on page 178. He says, list 3 adjustments that you have made to your surroundings that are making an immediate difference in your health and life. So I think that's a great question for all of you, regardless of what you took from this. What have you done since you started? Because that looks to me like all of us have been around for a little bit. We're all a couple months, if not a couple months, several years into this process. And Allie, I'll ask you this question because I want to know, what has been one of the biggest adjustments you've made in your world that have it to be leptogenic?
Well, there's a couple, and that's to become a grazer, because I recognize the importance. If you graze, you're going to keep that natural portion control. So you're just not going to overeat. It's like a natural stomach band. And that's been huge. So since I wasn't a grazer and I tend to lose track of time, setting alarms for me was really good. But the other thing too was we eat on the smaller plates. And now I can visualize, because I do it every single night. If we're out to eat somewhere and they serve it on some big old plate, I already have a mental image of what my plate looks like. And so I, make it the size of what I would eat at home. And then I'm able to eat the right amount. Because really that's the big part of it is eating frequently so that you're, keep your insulin level stable, but also having the smaller, more frequent meals so your portion control stays good. And then just being able to eyeball the right size, like what legit the right size is. We eyeball the old way just fine. There's no reason why we can't eyeball the new way just fine. So those have been, I think, my biggest takeaways, and have kept me 6 years later with still keeping the weight off.
Yeah.
Yeah. No chips. Dang, chips can't come back in my house ever.
No, I get that. And for myself, and I'll use this as an example. So I'm not on 5 and 1. I'm in that maintenance phase and maintaining. And I fluctuate? We all have those ebbs and flows where we find ourselves starting to maybe slip into some of those old habits. Creating that awareness for me, which I never had before. So years past, I would put on a little bit, and I can gain 10 pounds like that. That's something that can quickly happen. But creating awareness, and it's not about getting on the scale. It's about how I feel. Because when I really recognize that when I start feeling lethargic or I start feeling this brain fog, for me, I get headaches. I get headaches when I eat a bunch of sugar. So I'm instantly aware that, hey, this is not serving me well. I've got to make some changes here. But I'll use tonight's example. I went to the store to buy steaks for dinner. So I bought New York strips. My initial thought was, man, I don't feel like cooking dinner tonight, but I'm going to cook anyway. But I'm not. My old self used to say, well, I'm going to get steaks and I'll cook some potatoes on the grill. Didn't get the potatoes tonight. So we got romaine to make a healthy salad. I got some fresh green beans and I put those on some olive oil and put those on the grill and turned them over and heated them up. So we had roasted vegetables that way. And so just creating those healthy choices by slowing down just a little bit, saying, what can I eat that, here again, it may not be 5 and 1 compliant, but it's way better than having potatoes, having the high carb choice. And the plate size has been key. Another thing that I no longer do, I used to fry some foods. I don't do that anymore. That's just not serving me well and not good. And so we simply do not do that anymore. And the other thing is, just like I said, my daughter's got a spot in the pantry for her stuff, and I will stay away from it. Well, I'm not going to lie. Maybe once every 2 weeks, I may say, what you got down there? And I may have one choice. And then after I have that choice, I'm like, that really wasn't what I wanted. And it was just a thought of, that was that old version of myself wanting to go back to where I started. No. So here again, creating that awareness. And I mean, ladies, that's pretty much it for element 7. I mean, next week, we're going to dive into element 8, of course, learning to eat every 3 hours, learning the importance of that. Just like Allie said, how do we stabilize those blood sugars? So I'm going to stop recording on that.